session, Ensuring Gender Equality in Environmental Damage Assessment and Green Recovery Process of Ukraine. My name is Anna Zhovtenko. I'm Project Manager in Energy and Environment Portfolio in UNDP in Ukraine, and I will moderate this session today. We invited panelists from international organizations, from academia, from civil society, government, to discuss the gender equality aspect of the sustainable recovery and the ways to increase women's leadership and participation in green recovery process of Ukraine. I'm honored to present the panelists of the session. Mr. Evgeny Fedorenko, Deputy Minister of Environmental Protection and Natural Resources of Ukraine. He's online. Ms. Martine Yare, Recovery Analyst of UNDP in Ukraine. Ms. Irina Kondratenko, Coordinator of Program Climate Change and Energy Policy in the Heinrich Böll Foundation. Ms. Anna Ackerman, Board Member at Center for Environmental Initiatives Eco-Action and Policy Analyst at the International Institute for Sustainable Development. Ms. Valentina Bilyakova, the President of Women's Energy Club of Ukraine. She's online with us. Mr. Alexander Dyachuk, Leading Research Officer of the Institute for Economics and Forecasting of National Academy of Science of Ukraine. Ms. Oksana Kisil, National Expert of the Covenant of Mayors East. And Ms. Mariana Yevsukova, Co-founder and Coordinator of the Ukrainian Women's Initiative in the United Arab Emirates, representative to the UN from the World Federation of Ukrainian Women's Organizations. So my first question will be addressed to the Deputy Minister of Environmental Protection and Natural Resources of Ukraine, Mr. Evgeny Fedorenko. Please tell us why gender equality is the part of the government's agenda of the wartime. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'm honored to speak at this crucial event organized by UNDP, highlighting the intersectionality of gender equality, environmental damage assessment, and Ukraine's green recovery process. As we discuss the complexities of post-war recovery, it is essential to recognize that the impacts of conflict are not uniform. Women, children, and people with disabilities often bear the brunt of these challenges. Ukraine, in its commitment to build back better, has prioritized gender equality and women's improvement. The recent adoption of the state strategy on equal rights and opportunities of women and men aligns with international standards, setting a path for inclusive recovery. However, there remains work to be done. Despite advancements, the energy sector gender imbalance persists, with women often confined to administrative role. Encouragingly, the renewable energy sector demonstrates positive trends, with women holding significant administrative position. Our session today delves into the gender challenges in Ukraine green recovery, focusing on women's representation in decision-making regarding energy and climate change. We aim to address the barriers hindering women's full participation, from political representation to their underrepresentation in key sectors like agriculture and energy. We appreciate UNDP's contributions assessing gender equality in Ukrainian agriculture and upcoming analysis on women empowerment in the energy sector. We must recognize the evolving gender roles resulting from the war, including their impact on the energy and climate change landscape. The importance of integrating gender considerations into green recovery policies cannot be overstated. it is not just a matter of equity, but also a strategic imperative for unlocking the country's full economic potential. As we prepare this section of Ukrainian facility plan related to environmental and energy topics, we must be sure to address issues of women underrepresentation in those sectors. It's necessitates target support and education, including the support for career guidance and women's professional associations and thematic areas of environmental and energy topics. In closing, the ministry reaffirms its commitment to advancing gender equality in climate change initiatives. Our journey towards a sustainable future requires collaboration, data-driven policies, and the demystifying of gender stereotypes. Let us work together to build a future where gender equality and climate action go hand in hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. The audience will have Q&A session after all speeches from our panelists. You'll have a chance to ask the questions later. So the next question from me will go to Martin Yare. Dear Martin, as a representative of UNDP in Ukraine, could you please list the most critical interventions which could be made by the international organizations like UN to encourage women participation and gender equality in green recovery process?
Thank you so much, Anna. And I think, first of all, as demonstrated by Deputy Minister Fedorenko, there has been progress towards gender equality in Ukraine, even now in the middle of the devastating war. But there is room to improve to further advance the gender equality in the recovery process in order to build back better and build back greener. In particular, it is critical to look at this in sectors such as agriculture and energy, because if we are to unlock the full economic potential of the country, we have to look at gender equality in these sectors and within the recovery process, integrated in the recovery process. So as UNDP, we have the people of Ukraine at the center of all of our interventions, making sure that we leave no one behind. And our approach to gender equality is therefore to look at how the war impacts men and women, girls and boys. Because then we can also see how negative gender stereotypes, for example, can hinder a man in seeking psychosocial supports, or how a woman may face barriers in attaining the skills and pursuing a job in the energy sector. And then we can support our national partners, of course, in removing those barriers. Because building back better is about understanding the full potential impact on the environment and the climate, and how this impacts the lives of the people of Ukraine. So UNDP have made some progress in collaboration with our national partners since the beginning of the war. And I really just want to highlight 3 key interventions that also demands a lot of further action from us all. So first of all, the war has had a very dramatic impact on the agricultural sector. So UNDP made the gender impact assessment of the full-scale war on the agricultural sector. And there we were able to identify some critical bottlenecks. So first of all, in rural areas, women comprise about 30% in agriculture. And those women-owned agricultural enterprises have relatively few and fewer resources and poor access to those resources and agricultural assets, also land. As well, we saw that the gap in technical skills are there, particularly for maintaining and operating the mechanical assets. So in the context of the war, it's of course becoming more and more important to provide those targeted interventions at the local level, in the rural areas in particular. So the second one is a key priority to, of course, ensure safe conditions for returning IDPs and refugees for Ukraine, and for attracting those people to safely return to Ukraine. So here we also have to look at the interlinkages with green recovery and gender equality and environmental damage. And we heard that as well in the session that we had earlier today. Because what does green recovery really mean? So green recovery actually refers to the process of overcoming the consequences of the war by improving the living conditions of both the current and the future generations. And that's, of course, also why we're all here at COP today. So in order to do that, we need to make measures on climate change mitigation, preservation of water resources and biodiversity, but also particularly in the context in Ukraine, facilitate the economic development and create new jobs and safe and prosperous living conditions. The last point I want to make before I'll stop talking too much is on energy. So UNDP is currently contributing to rebuild the critical energy infrastructure with damage assessments and by providing the large-scale equipment for energy access in major cities such as Kyiv and Odessa and other major cities. So rebuilding this infrastructure is critical to increase the share of renewables, because without more capacities in the energy system, and without rebuilding the damages that has occurred, we won't be able to increase the share of renewables. But again, here in these efforts, it's incredibly important to look at the comprehensive and the interlinkages between, particularly UNDP will do this now in local feasibility studies for energy interventions. We have to look at the impact of those energy interventions through a gender lens, but also with environmental and socioeconomic impacts. I think I'll stop there, and we have a very quick video before the word is yet again yours, Anna. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Martina. So the next speaker will be Irina Kondratenko. And my question is, dear Irina, you work for Heinrich Böll Foundation, which supports initiatives that promote gender equality, democracy, human rights, and at the same time, preservation of the environment and climate. Please tell us, what is your vision of gender-sensitive green recovery? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for inviting me here to speak. In Heinrich Böll Foundation, we indeed follow and promote green values. And for us, green values mean not only protecting the environment and climate, but also it means gender equality and participative democracy. And similarly, green reconstruction of Ukraine should also mean ensuring equal opportunities and engagement of women and men, except all other green things. So during the war, in these difficult times, we see how women are actively involved in many processes. Some of them protect our country. Some women establish businesses even during the war, and some of them do very important political and advocacy work. So in these difficult times of labor shortage, it is simply a necessity that women are getting more and more involved in different kinds of jobs, especially jobs that are typically considered male jobs. But at the same time, it shows us that like the only obstacle why women are not entirely included in those like male jobs is simply stereotypes, prejudices, and beliefs about like traditional roles of men and women. And yeah, if we want to build back better, we have to build more inclusive and to ensure engagement of everyone in the process of both decision making and executing recovery plans. So given the tremendous environmental and economic damages, we indeed need a lot of people and diverse skills to rebuild Ukraine green. And we simply don't have a luxury to not entirely include a half of the population, meaning women, in these processes, and we don't have a luxury to keep this half of the population less financially motivated, receiving almost 20% less salaries than men have. So green recovery is indeed associated mostly with sectors as energy, construction, transport, and these sectors are usually male dominated. But what is even more important is that women are less represented at decision-making roles in companies and in parliament and government. According to the recent study conducted by two Ukrainian organizations, Razom We Stand and Analytical Center Society and Environment, reconstruction of Ukraine based on green principles could create additional 4.2 million green jobs. And these jobs will be created mostly in industries that are male-dominated. And the question now is how to ensure that these new opportunities will equally engage women and men. And for all that, I believe that we need a mixture of working with people's mindset and stereotypes. We need gender-responsive policies, specifically on reconstruction. We need more data for these policies, and we need more learning opportunities for women, because inequality at workplace often starts way earlier when girls choose a profession and when women apply for jobs. So girls usually faced skepticism when choosing technical education, and women usually face skepticism when applying for engineering and other technical jobs. So what we need to do is to engage more actively girls in STEM education. We need to provide leadership and entrepreneurship programs for women. And also we need to provide retraining opportunities for those women who are now relocated abroad or within Ukraine, who lost their jobs because of the war. We need to attract them back, and we need to give them tools to reintegrate in these new green jobs. And my final point will be about data. For evidence-based policies, of course, we need data. This is challenging in a wartime because we have a lot of data sets closed. but it's very important to know where we stand and whether we have any progress in gender mainstreaming. And here I talk not only about data collected and published by state entities, but also so-called ESG data reported by companies. We need more expertise on the intersection of environmental topics and gender topics. And I am glad that these topics and this specific intersection is getting more and more attention, in particular here at COP, but I guess not enough. So we have a lot of work ahead of us.
Thank you very much, Irina. Indeed, there's a lot of work ahead. Thank you. So the next question will go to the next speaker, Anna Ackerman. Dear Anna, based on your experience working in the International Institute for Sustainable Development, please elaborate on why it is important to integrate gender considerations into green recovery policies in Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would actually have also 3 points. One is about own experience, which I think is important in Ukrainian context. The second about gender responsive reconstruction, and as one of the policy tools, procurement, and how to include gender issues in the procurement. So starting from own experience, so Eco Action as an environmental NGO in Ukraine works on environment and climate and energy. And we of course see that in energy there is lots of men, only a quarter of those who work in the energy sector are women, and you can feel it at all the meetings. And I recall one meeting back some time ago, I wouldn't say when exactly, energy-related meeting where most of the people around the big table discussing were men, let's say 50+ years old. There was me at some point raising the hand, and they looked at me and said, "Oh, there is this young girl who would like to comment something," you know, a bit with a smile on their face. And I remember I thought, you know, you're not taken seriously straight away, so whatever I say would probably be, you know, taken with a pinch of salt. But this is how it used to be, and I think we actually went very far already now where we stand today, and there is many more women in the energy sector. And then in the environmental sector, actually environment protection, at least in the NGOs, the picture is opposite. So there is, at the moment, there is many more women. In our NGO, so at Eco Action, we consider men as being very, very precious. We try to catch them the way we can, meaning, you know, when we want to hire someone new. And 10% actually now of our staff is our men who are in the army also. So that's also, of course, important and considerable. But I have to say, when we are hiring someone and we want to have a person with expertise, considering the salaries in the civil society sector in Ukraine, women are much more ready to accept a lower salary, which we can afford ourselves, rather than men who would probably not be keen. And we saw that in many already cases in the last few years, who are not very keen to accept a lower salary than otherwise. And one of the issues with salaries at the moment that we are facing in Ukraine is there is many international projects, humanitarian development organizations who offer very well-paid jobs, thousands of euros per month. And that means that organizations like ours cannot, unfortunately, afford to pay that salary. So this is an issue, and again, that comes down also to the certain gender inequality because of what I've just described. So this is just a few points from the very recent experience. We were just discussing now with Martin, we should be as women talking louder sometimes also, just like now. So let's try to do that. Second point about reconstruction. And I would like to point out here that the colleagues from the International Institute for Sustainable Development prepared a few articles on gender issues in Ukraine reconstruction. And I would like redirect you toward the website because I think they're great. Because I'm not an expert in gender issues myself, but I want to, you know, I try to gather these messages from these articles and deliver them today. So in if we take, there's lots of statistics already, and there has been lots of conflicts in the world. And in post-conflict situations, women usually constitute majority of the population. This is the reality, unfortunately. And they are, of course, caretakers for their families. They're taking care of the elderly. They're taking care of children. They're taking care of people with of disability. Plus, we see that already today with destruction of schools, kindergartens, destruction of hospitals, women's care burden is also increasing. It's very important and considerable. As of the data, as of the beginning of 2023, out of more than 5 million women, internally displaced persons in Ukraine from the war in Ukraine, 55% for women and girls. If we take all of the internally displaced persons, so 40% care for an elderly person, about a half care for a child. So this is the reality. And that, of course, then comes to the infrastructure that these people use, infrastructure that these people need, and infrastructure that we are planning to rebuild too. So here, what is important is that, and Martina already mentioned that, about security issues, because women and girls have other priority in terms of security, livelihood, and so on. We also mentioned, and Irina mentioned, the data that is very necessary to gather first before you plan anything and plan any reconstruction. And then I would like to underline on top of that how important it is to make sure that women are there for the decision-making processes throughout when you plan your infrastructure and so on. And why it is important is that also if you look at those who plan infrastructure and construction in Ukraine, these are mostly men. Historically speaking, these are mostly men. So this is a men they're dominating this decision-making processes. So we have to ensure that women are also included, considering their needs. And of course, not only at the national level in Ukraine, but also on the level of communities, on the international level, because there is also the support coming from international partners. And then reconstruction is also entangles all of these men-dominated sectors. We already mentioned energy. There is also the construction sector, which is the most straightforward thing you can imagine. And how many women are there in the construction sector? Approximately, well, not more than 10%. So we have to be also thinking about how to integrate women in that, because when we will be rebuilding full swing, but again, reconstruction has already started now. We're rebuilding today. Women also have to be taking part in that, because it's also jobs at all the different levels. Again, starting from planning to designing to building itself. It could be anything. And we, of course, have to think about the skills building programs for women and so on. I'm constantly also thinking about also, except for IDPs, but all of the women who are now abroad, millions and millions of women who are now abroad. I was discussing recently with a Polish company, and of course Poles have so many Ukrainians, with a Polish company who are producing heat pumps. And I was trying to imagine, okay, Ukraine would probably at some point for the green reconstruction would need lots of heat pumps. Maybe we'll also be producing heat pumps ourselves. And I just was curious to say, can women bear this? Can they install a heat pump? What does it mean? How would it look like? Except that's actually a very good point and a good idea, because heat pumps, you have to really have some, there is lots of engineering behind, so you have to know what you're doing, how you connect everything. It's a bit more heavy, so maybe you would need two women instead of one man to do that. But it's actually a very interesting sector, and one of those to consider, just as an example. And then to wrap up, not to take more time, about procurement. So reconstruction that we just mentioned, it would require, big public spendings. And of course, we understand now Ukraine doesn't have probably that many resources in the state budget, but we have the liquidation fund with all of the money collected from the Russian frozen assets in Ukraine. So there is actually public spending already going in now to rebuild. And these are millions of hryvnia already today. So this is happening already today. And when we talk about procurement, the spending public money, of course, procurement is crucial. We have ProZorro system, which is one of the best in the world in terms of transparency. And they want to make it, great again. So how to make it even cooler, how to show to the world that we can do it better. Ukraine could definitely, by integrating gender aspects, for example, in procurement, could make ProZorro even cooler, so to say, even more modern, green, and sustainable. And procurement in post-conflict settings with gender issues integrated is not something new. Some countries already did that. So there is a case of South Africa, there is a case of Colombia, who actually who had criteria to prioritize women-owned businesses in procurement. And just as a small last example here, in Colombia, for example, when there was a tender with a very similar bid, the women-owned businesses were prioritized for procurement because that was integrated in the policy, that was in the legislation. So because they considered this was really, really important, Ukraine could definitely look at that because definitely, again, in procurement, when we rebuild, most of the businesses who submit their tenders, these are men-owned businesses. I'm sure if you make the statistics, those will be men-owned businesses. So there you go. I'm wrapping up here, and please do check this website, these articles on the website of ISD. I think they're really interesting to check and to get some ideas for the policies that could be implemented in Ukraine. Thank you.
Anna, thank you very much. Very interesting angle of the view at the issue. The next, I want to invite the next speaker. This is Valentina Belякova, who is online. Colleagues, could you please, yes, show us Valentina. Dear Valentina, considering your extensive experience working in renewable energy, could you please tell us about the problems and challenges which women face when they want to participate in the infrastructure projects? Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to this conference. This is very important gender topic, especially in the recovery process. 6 years ago, I established together with my colleagues Women's Energy Club of Ukraine, and we started basically from the research in order to understand all open points and all items that we need to work on. And I could tell you that based on the statistic from that time, we had a difference in the salaries. If we will start to talk about salaries, 30%, if to compare with men on the same positions in the energy sector, as well as we have underrepresentation of women on the top positions and so on. Right now, we are also finalizing the research, which will address how war impacted gender equality in energy sector in Ukraine, and we'll be really happy to share with all of you later this year this research. And coming back to your question regarding the green recovery and how a renewable energy sector could address and could get more women there, I also would like to consider several points. So number one is ensuring women's engagement in decision-making and decarbonization. And it means women's participation in decision-making processes related to decarbonization. We must actively promote and create spaces for their inclusion. This also includes inclusivity mentoring programs, targeted initiatives to amplify women's voices in these critical discussions. Because many times when women, they're simply afraid to say something, or they're not on those positions in the companies that they have right for the voice, or even easier, for example, I had many experiences speaking in front of the school girls and asking them like, why you're not considering to go to the universities, to the technical positions, and you're not looking for the energy sector. They said we don't have examples of women who are working in the energy sector, because if you will look normally in Ukrainian television programs, when you see some expert discussions, mainly you will see men there, not women. So this is number one. Number two, we need to create inclusive and decarbonized energy and industry systems, and it will require intentional efforts. Policies must be designed to address existing inequalities, provide equal opportunities, and ensure that the benefits of these transitions are shared equitably among all segments of society. And here I would like to consider about the legislation challenges, which probably will still need to have quotas, and also we still need to review our legislation in terms of the barriers for women, because as far as you know, some time ago it was finally took out the barrier for women who want to work, for example, in the mining energy sector. Right now they could consider it, and I can tell you more that right now women are working in the mining energy sector at the east of Ukraine, because a lot of men, they went to the war and there were no one who could join this position there. And also another very important point that has been already discussed a little bit today, it's aligning financial flows with climate and gender needs. Because aligning financial flows with both climate and gender needs is a complex task. And this necessitates the development of financial instruments that explicitly consider gender. The governments, international organizations, financial institutions must collaborate to create frameworks that prioritize sustainable and gender responsive investments. And this is very important for those who already have their own businesses, for those who are still just considering to have their own businesses. And here we need to provide some not just financial instruments, but also some trainings in order for women to help them understand how they could create their businesses. And also for gender responsive investments. Yeah, so because we will have a lot of the investors who would like to come to Ukraine and to help in the green recovery, but we need to ensure that these companies will take into consideration the gender equality. So I will be very quick and fast probably, and as I said, we will lovely share with you our research, which will show and address all the needs regarding how to get women back, because this is also a very important question right now. We are lack of women, we are lack not of women, but also of the kids who left with women Ukraine, and we need to ensure that all of them will be encouraged to get back and to work in the energy sector of Ukraine. Thank you very much.
Valentina, thank you very much. Dear Alexander, now I want to pass the floor to you with the request to present from the scientific point of view the importance of engagement both genders to the green recovery process of Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. As today only me and Deputy Minister, it's less 30% of men on this event, so I will be very careful in my speech. Seriously, I think the recovery of Ukraine it's a big challenge, not only for Ukraine but also for Europe, for the world, and for all people who with us. So we should thinking about how we can collect people, how we can collect human resources for recovery, because so maybe of course gender question is very important. And 4 years ago we worked with World Foundation and prepared some study about women in energy sector, and found some lot of gaps in salary, in issues. But in legislation, maybe it's not too much gaps of, and from last after 2019, so a lot of legislation was upgraded and so on. So I can say from my view, I'm not deeply involved in gender issue, but in my view, it's not about legislation. It's a key points or key bottlenecks. It's some culture or traditional regarding it's a men jobs, it's a women jobs, or something. So we need, but where is the land of growing of this of these problems? It's education. So we should thinking about how to change on education level, on school level, or maybe kindergarten level, school level, and first of all on university level. So and no need to speak about that energy is only for mainly for men or for women, because as a lot of you said, that's recovery of Ukraine, I hope, will be built back greener, better, cleaner. So it's not only about also of big hard work or something. It's about smart work. So and of course all of us can find some place for helping to recovery. And I can say that I'm not sure if we can collect all necessary human resources inside in Ukraine. Maybe we will need some immigration because we need fast recovery. No need to wait 50 years. We should do it. Sorry, next 5-10 years. So so we should work in university now. And of course, also I mentioned about impact of the war, how many men died, and not only of course men, but children and women and so on. But men's will be in or a lot of men's will be in army not only till the victory, but maybe again 5 or 10 years after the victory. So it will be needed for Ukraine for security issues. So and I see now that how much women in growing in energy sector, because again energy sector relating with renewables or not renewables, but it's more highly people in this sector working with highly education and yeah, and somewhat crucial point in our or some crucial insights from our previous study was that a lot of women working on low income jobs with high education. So it's no good. So we need some provide some changes. Of course, if we don't have data about existing situation, but we have a good of experts with a lot of programs, and so and we can try to find solution based on existing. So the no data is not should be some barriers for solving the issue. So it's absolutely fine. Yeah, and yeah, I hope, and maybe in the end, we should think about recovery, about economy. So for economy, all people is needed. And maybe finally, will be good to have a no women club, men club, but women, men club, or maybe certain gender. So we should be together. And speaking about this, I don't see the real problem for the men in Ukraine to speak about this issue. Of course, maybe you as women, you want to maybe solve some issues much faster. As for me, it's also absolutely good, because again, we should recover and growing. We should not only recover of economy of Ukraine, we should development of economy and moving forward after the victory. Thank you.
Alexander, thank you very much for your valuable insights. So the next speaker will be Oksana Kisil. And dear Oksana, Covenant of Mayors works very closely with communities. What do you think about female leadership on local level? How it can be supported by the government and Ukraine's partners? Thank you.
Dear colleagues, thanks a lot for this opportunity to present Covenant of Mayors and to improve women's voice within COP. I try to speak more louder because we have just now challenges with our room behind us. And what I saw, this room has real bad cases with gender issue. I heard only once the woman voice, and it means we in Ukraine so happy that many women around us on a different political level, on local level, on regional level, and on national level. I try to prepare for this meeting and start think if we real as women are having any problem with this gender issue. And I remember some cases from my childhood. I was born in a small village, and many problems the women around my family solve with the help of pens or rolling pin, etc., to improve their voices. But right now we're happy. We have a real good position on different level. But again, there is a problem. I analyzed more than 200 municipalities in Ukraine, and what I see, there is no women mayors on the level of big municipalities. We have only men mayors in Ukraine on the level of big municipalities. The second issue, but it's minus, but we have many positives. We have many deputy mayors on the level of big municipalities. For example, Lviv municipalities has at least 2 deputy mayors as a women, who is responsible for critical infrastructure and for economic development. And that's why we could say that we have some best cases which could promote on municipal level. But everything is not well moving on the level of small and medium-sized municipalities. The situation is better that with number of women mayors of small and medium-sized municipalities, especially if we speak about rural area. But deputy mayors or deputy head of communities, 100% is men's. That's why my idea and my proposals follow. We need to organize many target events on gender issue and include gender issue in national policy. Because if you could see everything, it's typical for Ukraine and for other former Soviet countries that everything should move from the high level to other level. But from other side, we have decentralized process. And if, for example, it will be improved voice from EU municipalities, from EU parliaments within gender issue, we'll have good partners to support Ukrainian women mayors and to support other women on municipal level with their voice. But again, I think that we will problem with gender issue related to our men too, because we have a war and many our husbands, son, grandfather died, and we will have this statistic more and more increasing. It means that many women will stand and support local level. What our role? Our role is to build capacity on local level, to think how we could improve access to energy services, social services, to education and job position of Ukrainian women. But of course, we need to think the fighting is ongoing, and we will be strong together, men and women. And I think we solve this gender issue after our winner together. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Oksana. So the last but not least, our panelist for today is Mariana Yevsukova. Dear Mariana, the human rights defender with more than 20 years experience and the co-founder of the Ukrainian Women's Initiative in United Arab Emirates. What is your vision of the role of diaspora women's organization in the reconstruction of the country? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here. It was very last minute decision, and flying tonight from Thailand, preparing for this event. But thank you very much for making me part of this discussion. I indeed represent the diaspora, Ukrainian diaspora maybe, let's say, new wave of Ukrainian diaspora. And we are the partner of the World Federation of Ukrainian Women's Organizations that just celebrated 75 years of when it was founded in 1948. I want to mention that basically this is the first diaspora organization that was registered before the Congress of World Congress of Ukrainians. And this organization has members in 33 countries. And this federation proved how women, Ukrainian women, can be powerful on international arena, because when this federation started, basically most of the women who were part of this organization, they left Ukrainian territory because of the Soviet regime. And they were the rupor and the voice on the international arena about all horror scenes that were happening in Ukraine, about the attempt to diminish our culture, our language, our history. And nowadays, the history basically repeats itself, because again, women and children had to flee to Ukraine. Again, they had to leave the country and look for safe space and refuge. But I think one of the key points that history also shows us that Ukrainian women are not solely victims of the circumstances and not victims of the wars and other kind of human rights violations. Ukrainian women are very resilient. And yes, on one hand, the women and children, they suffer from the all the impact on our economy and ecology, climate change. But on the other hand, Ukrainians have knowledge, and as you spoke, right, education and ideas how to solve the problem. I was thinking also how we as a diaspora organization can be useful in these regards, and I have a couple of recommendations. Of course, there are a lot of Ukrainian women and children who might not come back to Ukraine. And this is a big topic right now on the governmental level, on the level of diaspora. What can we do? And we, in a lot of countries, including UAE, we work with the people who are temporarily displaced. We still hope that they come back to Ukraine, so we prefer not to call them refugees. And in UAE, we cannot call them refugees because UAE is not the country who accepts refugees. They are not signed any kind of the convention to accept the refugees. So here there are no refugees in this country. But what we do, for example, here in UAE or in Canada, we work with temporarily displaced people from Ukraine. We help them to adjust to the life here, but we also are trying to empower them and to provide them opportunities to learn the best practices that exist in these countries so that they can bring it back to Ukraine and bring it back to help Ukraine, to restore Ukraine, to rebuild Ukraine. So this is one of the things that we can be useful in. And I think here we can create more synergies and cooperation between different agencies, governmental, non-governmental, international institutions, academia. Besides this, of course, diaspora always fundraise to help Ukraine, and it's not a secret. And these last 75 years showed how diaspora could be powerful in funding different causes for Ukraine. So I think one of the tasks of Women's Federation or World Congress of Ukrainians is to fundraise, but probably if we speak about the green economy and we speak about sustainable world, we should fundraise and support the projects that allow carbon, that are energy saving, that are has balanced consumption based on principles of joint responsibilities, etc. So I think this would be the meaningful and sustainable way how diaspora can work together with Ukraine. And one more thing that I wanted to stress on, because we were talking here, right, about some statistics about women being part of the economy. You know, women during the war times usually considered as a reserve labor army. So basically, when men go to fight, women take the jobs to provide for the country and be the labor force. But as a Second World War showed, lots of women then got back to the reproductive labor. So they got back being mothers, caregivers. But the time have changed. And I think the task of all the entities involved in this area is to make sure that women become a powerful and active part of productive labor market and will be included in decision making. We talked about this among other speakers. And one example of the statistics. It's the latest statistics that I got from the Commissioner on Gender Equality of Ukraine, Katerina Levchenko, that according to the data, there are 60% of newly created individual entrepreneurs belong to women right now. Comparing to 2021, there were 49. So we see how women really take the jobs and how they provide for the economy right now. So our task is to build on this momentum and to continue with this. And the one last thing is that in September 2023, there is a platform on ensuring gender mainstream and inclusion in recovery established under the patronage of the Vice Prime Minister of Euro Integration. And it includes most of the ministries and governmental bodies. So I think it's essential that Ministry of Environmental Protection and Natural Resources is part of this platform. But I also think that it's essential that diaspora organizations are included in the discussions and in these processes from step one. Because I think there is a lot of experience, and there is a lot of experience also from other countries on building green economies, on sustainability. So my recommendation from the World Federation of Ukrainian Women's Organization is to include diaspora in this dialogue, include diaspora also in the decision-making process, to help to restore our economy. And I also want to take this opportunity to say that there will be the Commission on Status of Women session in New York in March. That is like yearly event. And Ukraine is always widely represented at this session by the delegation. And just today in the morning, we applied for the parallel event from the World Federation of Women's Organization that will be held online, and it is dedicated to the green post-recovery of Ukraine. Invite everybody to join this session. It will be hopefully on 14th of March. We will learn more details in January, but I think this is also opportunity to continue this dialogue on international level and to make sure that all entities are included. Thank you.
Mariana, thank you. Thank you very much. Now there is a chance to get some questions from the audience. Dear guests, does anyone have any questions? Please.
Dear speakers, thank you so much for this very interesting and paramount in our latest discussion. My name is Vlad. I'm here on behalf of the UNICEF Ukraine. So I guess that my question will be somehow relatable to you, but it consists of two basically small questions. first, to say you have somehow mentioned about, like some interventions, some specific regulations from, like from the government perspective. We are talking now about like generally gender equality, but there are like two definitions, equality and equity, that are, in my humble opinion, different. Equality, it means that all people, they are treated equally without any like prejudice, something like that, bias. And equity, it's more about positive discrimination, to somehow to sharpen, to make it more equal, to like, for instance, yeah, somehow to make it better, I would say so. So in your opinion, in which fields and how, and probably does like Ukraine have to implement some regulations on a positive discrimination to somehow, like change the situation manually? And the second one, also in terms of inclusivity, what about youth? Does the like green recovery process, all recovery process stops within the inclusivity of, like all genders, all minorities, or also young people participation as the engines and generatives of ideas? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the question, dear colleagues. Basically, there are two questions. One about positive discrimination, possibility of this, and about youth engagement. Who wants? Mariana, do you want to start? Oh, Martina, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much for an incredibly important question. I think maybe I'll just provide a short comment on the first part. Maybe more so speaking as a Norwegian, more than as a UNDP representative, but what UNDP also does is to try to provide international best practices and expertise. So in Norway, we've had very good experiences with these equity measures, particularly in the very male-dominated professions, such as the energy sector. So from many years, decades back, we had policies that actually made it a law that you have to have a certain representation in the board of a national company and a private company that are women. That is 40%. So you have to have a gender balance in the executive board of the company. So that also means that being on the executive board of a major company within these industries is, of course, capacity building in itself, but it also allowed for these boards and the CEOs that were male dominated to look elsewhere, to look at the capacities within the networks, within the companies, to see, okay, we actually have a lot of women with the capacity and with the competence that is needed for strategic visioning of the companies within this sector. So this is also really led to, I mean, it's not perfect by any measure yet, but the gender equality in these sectors now in Norway is greatly improved, and that's much because of this positive discrimination in a way.
I prefer to call it affirmative actions rather than positive discrimination. But yes, and I think it could be done on different levels. And for example, here in UAE, there is by law the obligation of all state companies to have women on board. It's written in the law. There is no way around it. Every public governmental company will have women on board. By the way, here in this country, the parliament is 50-50. 50% men, 50% women. Again, this is affirmative action. So I also think we can learn a lot from these young country, but yet with a lot of interest in examples how the gender equality could be promoted, also considering that this is Arab Muslim country. One of the things that I didn't say during my speech is that I think that there should be more programs for women for the sustainable projects, you know. So this could be also one of the ways to engage women in the restoration and green economy. I also have very extensive experience on child and youth participation, and I partnered with UNICEF many years ago in Ukraine in engaging children and for their right to be heard. And I think it's not only about youth to be engaged in these activities, but also children, because children are the ones who experience this world, and they live in the cities. And I think there are numerous mechanisms around the world, and I consider Asia and Latin America to be at the forefront on bringing children's voice into the decision making. So to answer your question, I would look into their experiences and maybe replicate, of course, considering our experience in Ukraine, culture and circumstances, but this is where we can also learn. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask our technical team to display, please, the speaker of our panel. We don't see Valentina. And meanwhile, yes, I pass the floor to Oksana.
Yes, I fully support your message that we need to speak more from positive issue, and we need to speak about opportunities to improve women's voice within green and resilience recovering. Because the first voice just now, my first comments will be related to some 3 mayors women voices which asked during a Vilnius event that we need to speak about green and resilience recovering. Green for many women mean it's renewable energy and maybe some trees around. But if we speak about true women voices, we need to work more with adaptation, climate change adaptation issue. It means resilience. And I think together with you, we could change something on local level, because our project is working with municipalities in the field of development, climate and energy plans. And it's important to improve stakeholders' engagement. And one target group, if we speak about adaptation pillar related to women and young people, it means that we need to teach local level to engage more stakeholders for public discussions. Our minus, it's true that our minus, if you speak about local level, it's discussion level. We need to improve dialogue on the level of each stakeholders. And again, please don't talk about only energy access. Speak about what about climate change and how high temperature, how extreme weather will influence on women and health. Just now I thought, what can, for example, change UNDP? Because UNDP is supporting many projects in Ukraine. For example, you could add in terms of reference to, for example, for project energy efficiency and public building, that it will be some condition system in the kitchen. Because if it's kindergarten, and please mention temperature plus 35 degrees outdoor, and the women try to prepare food for children without any condition system, it's influence on healthy, and I think you could add it to the terms of reference for any grants. It's like idea. And that's why it depends not only from local and national level, it depends from women and young's voice, how strong this voice, and how they try to push local and national level with their needs.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other ideas. I see Valentina. Yes, I see Valentina want to speak. Please, Valentina,
Thank you.
yours.
Thank you very much. I will be very short, and I will basically argue regarding what Alexander said earlier. I think that in order to have equity and equality, we need to start from the legislation. Because in order to change the stereotypes, we need to have more women on the top positions, on decision-making positions, and so on. And for this, we need to have quotas, probably. I'm not speaking that it will be like for constant decision and so on, but maybe for a couple of years until everyone will change their stereotypes that we have women. Women is like 50% of the decision-making, management, or whatever position is. And after that, we will come back to everything else. But for that, we need to have quotas, we need to have trainings, we need to have all opportunities, we need to have women speaking on the conferences, not just about equality and gender topics here, yes, but also to be involved into other discussions and be 50% part of the conference sessions and so on. So we need to have our presence and we need to have quotas for that. This is my opinion.
Thank you. Thank you, Valentina. Alexander.
Yeah, maybe a few words about positive equity. If positive, maybe it's good, but I'm not sure if governments know better comparing to the family some issues or some self people who know. I think men or women should have access, to have a possibility to work where they want. As if like this work is absolutely fine. So, but it's not. It's not the government issue. What will be better for each people in Ukraine? Or general, maybe some issues, of course. Regarding the involved youth people in recovery, of course, because for whom this recovery? First of all, for new generation, for young people, and it's not secret that old generation usually not understand the fashion which like young generation. But it's a future, and of course we include some I don't know some ideas and something from yours and including in reconstruction. It's not only about construct some buildings. It's about how the building will was a vision or landscape and so on. Was how much some space is needed for young people and people. Because we need to work with new generation, with young people, because we need to keep and grow and we need to solve demographic issue in Ukraine. So because it's not a secret that countries who help us improving some legislation and provide a lot of just only thanks for support of Ukraine, but we understand why, because all countries want to have smart people and good and active people. So we also worked on this. So we need to involve these young people. Thank you.
Can I have one more remark? Because we are here at the space where Expo 2020 was happening, and there was one of the pavilions where basically it was like about the city of the future and children. There was a special space where children could project the city of the future, you know? So this is like small steps. It's like a game, but this is also seeding in their head the idea they could be the change makers. Again, about this country, like 4 years ago, they established so-called youth hubs. So in all 7 Emirates, there are like youth incubators, let's say, that provide the space for the young people to work on their ideas, to generate ideas. They establish the youth councils almost in every institution. We had a big event for Vyshyvanka Day in May, and there was representatives from the National Archives and Library of UAE. And they have the youth council there, you know, so it seems like strange, right? It's an institution about the heritage and the history, but they have a youth council there. So again, I think this is something to learn from and to promote in Ukraine, to have this included on different levels.
Thank you.
Alexandra, I would like to improve women voice right now to your comments. I don't support your idea that green and resilience post-war recovery is related only to future generation. It's related to the women and children which are abroad just now. And we need to create the condition when they want to come back Ukraine. I have a good friend. She works right now in barber shop in Berlin. And I asked her one question: when you plan to come back home? She said, no, I don't know, because I feel myself so comfortable in Berlin, good job condition, good salary, everything is okay with my son. And that's why for me, as a mommy, as a woman who lives in Ukraine, the first we need to invite Ukrainian people abroad and to push our local economy. The second issue, it's exclusive. We will have many people which need some, not special, but need other life condition, urban condition, etc. We need to support these people. And third issue, it's future generation for Ukraine. And that's why maybe it's a women voice.
Thank you. So we need to plant a seed of women empowerment as early as possible. The audience, dear guests of the Ukrainian Pavilion, do you have any more questions? Yes, of course.
So like regarding my question, okay, affirmative action, it's not positive discrimination. It's just, you know, like the definition we use in the legal sphere, so something like that. I do agree with all aforementioned things, especially about like local level, because in my opinion, yes, government makes law, legislation implemented, but all the decisions like which we as the young people and other citizens are beneficiaries to is made and decided on the local, I would say, surface. And indeed, about councils, I am also like not just the member of Young Advisory Board of UNICEF, but also like since October, the member of Kyiv City Council, Youth City Council. So I guess that implementing those councils and boards, not just on the governmental institutions, not on the local level, but like in all of the spheres for like which we are detached, it will be like is essential. And like, for instance, you are the representative of the National Academy of Science, but we also have a Junior Academy of Science, which in my opinion, I was the mentee of this academy, which are professionals, and the ideas of those children and youth, they are magnificent, also in terms of renewable energy, those inventions that our Ukrainian children did, and it can be spread all over the world, but without the support of our country, of government, of local communities, we cannot achieve that, because we don't have like experience, we are lacking money, we are lacking platforms to share our voice. So yeah, I urge you and all of us to include youth, young people as not the, you know, like future generation, but the generation of nowadays, because you also were a youth and you know how it's difficult to be a young person without attention. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dear panelists, dear guests, thank you very much for this valuable insights, for your thoughts, and please stay for family photo. Thank you.